We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Monday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Man, oh man. We got ourselves a pretty busy Monday episode of the pod. We are fired up because we actually are starting to get the trickles of morsels of football to talk about here as we hit the middle of August. It feels good, people. We'll open college football coaches poll came out on Monday. We will react. Who's overrated? Who's underrated? What does it mean for the season ahead? We're going to do some over-under win total stuff in the coming weeks, but I think there's a few teams that were completely missed on. From there, Dabo Swinney, interesting quote about his 2025 Clemson Tigers. I think he likes that team maybe more than the public does. We will switch gears to basketball to wrap the show. NCAA Tournament, no expansion coming, at least not this year. Victory for all of us. We'll talk a little bit about an interesting quote from Tyran Stokes, the number one recruit in America, about his recruitment. And then we will wrap. Shout out BYU basketball, which dropped a sick highlight reel over the weekend. I don't understand why every college basketball program in America isn't doing that. So when I tell you that we have ourselves a jam-packed, loaded Monday night episode of the Aaron Torres Pod, people, we got ourselves a jam-packed, loaded episode of the Aaron Torres Pod. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. Listen, you know the deal by now. New clips, new videos going up every single day. By the way, I should mention we surpassed 58,000 subscribers over the course of the weekend. Cannot thank you all enough for your support. It really does mean the world to us. I think we can get to 60 before the start of college football season, but thank you all to you for subscribing to the show on YouTube. Also, you prefer the show on podcast, you can get it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you are watching live on YouTube, we have a link in the show description. Do your boy Torres a solid. Subscribe, download a couple episodes, help pump up those numbers over there. If you want to leave a 5-star rating and review, we appreciate that as well. With that said, it's a busy Monday. It's August. Football is in the air. There is no more time to waste, so let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, college football is getting close. When we got ourselves, how about this? The first top 25 of the offseason. That is right. College football is underway, and you know it when we get our first top 25. On Monday, the coaches poll was released. Next week, we'll get the AP, and it will be full speed ahead from there. What I want to do, just spend a little time talking about this coaches poll. Now, I know a lot of you transparently probably have never heard me talk college football. We've had thousands of new subscribers since the start of really, college basketball, March, April, portal season. Torres talks a lot of college football. I got a lot of takes. And so what I want to do is just spend a few minutes talking about this top 25, the teams that I think are frankly a little bit overrated and a little bit underrated. Before we get to the overrated, underrated, just very quickly, Texas coming in at number 1, Ohio State 2, Penn State 3, Georgia 4, Notre Dame 5, Clemson 6, Oregon 7, Alabama 8, LSU 9, Miami 10. You could go back and look at the rest. We're not going to go through all 25 teams. Those are the top 10. I have one team that I believe even in the top 10 is underrated. So let's get into the most overrated and underrated teams of the first AP poll. Let's start with a little bit of a surprise maybe. Number 8, the Alabama Crimson Tide, I actually believe are slightly underrated at number 8. Now, to be clear, this isn't the most egregious ranking in the history of polling here. And transparently, I think Alabama fans maybe are enjoying coming into the season a little bit under the radar. For so many years, the spotlight has been squarely on them. Now you get to kind of quietly come in, quietly, everybody's talking about Texas and Arch and Georgia and this and that. You just get to focus on football and be full speed ahead with the season ahead and with football. So in terms of why I think they're overrated, a couple things. One, I just think the offense is going to be better this year. Statistically, they were fine. They actually scored quite a bit last year, top 30 in scoring offense. But statistically, they also weren't great when Jalen Milroe was not just running all over people. Go back to all the big games. The games that they won, Georgia, Jalen Milroe was unbelievable. LSU, Jalen Milroe was unbelievable. The games that they lost, Oklahoma, kind of figured out you slow down Jalen Milroe, you can stop to Alabama, Tennessee, kind of the same. And so I just bring it up because I think this offense is going to be more dynamic. Ryan Grubb, remember, is coming in as the offensive coordinator at Alabama. He was with the Seattle Seahawks last year. He was Kalen DeBoer's right-hand man. He stayed in Seattle to coach the Seahawks after Kalen DeBoer left for Alabama. And I just think transparently that it is going to be a much better offense, even if Ty Simpson, who we expect to be the starting quarterback, is nothing official at this point, even if Ty Simpson isn't the elite of the elite of the elite as far as an athlete like Jalen Milroe is concerned. The other thing, I don't think people realize this, the defense was actually pretty good. As a matter of fact, let's take that back. They weren't pretty good. They were very good once they got past basically about the fourth, fifth game of the year. They give up 34 in that win to Georgia. They give up 40 in the loss to Vandy. Then how about this? The final, 9 games of the season, if you include a bowl game, 8 games of the season, if you include the bowl game, they did not give up more than 25 points in any of those games. And a lot of those games, they didn't even give up, basically 2 touchdowns, right? Held Missouri to 0 points, LSU 13 points, Auburn 14 points. So 3 of their wins from October 1st on in the SEC came when they gave up under 14 points. So I just bring it up. I think the defense is really good. I think the offense is going to be improved. The schedule, listen, no SEC team has an easy schedule, but you do get Tennessee and LSU at home. You have to go to Georgia. That's brutal. We know that. No Texas. That's the good news. Oklahoma, you get at home as well. I'd add South Carolina is going to be tough on the road, but I'm a little bit down on South Carolina, as we'll discuss in a minute. But Alabama, to me, is a little bit underrated at number 8. Number 12, you know what I think is wildly overrated? The Illinois Fighting Illini. And listen, we've done this, over and over again. I've been covering college sports for a long time. And the one thing I could tell you is pretty straightforward, is that if a team is coming off of a good season and they have a coach that and a quarterback that generally they're a little bit overrated coming into the season. I think that's the case with Illinois. Listen, Illinois was a great story last year, but let's call a spade a spade. You look back and a couple things stand out. First of all, I don't know, this is something that I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, because Illinois, by the way, they are that team that is getting the, they're this year's Indiana off the radar to the college football playoff. Well, first of all, if you're ranked in the top 15 in the preseason poll, you can by definition not be this year's Indiana, because nobody saw Indiana coming. Nobody had them in their top 15 last year. But 2, if you actually go back and look at Illinois, a couple things stand out. 9 wins last year. But 9 wins in the regular season, 10 wins overall. What was their best win, though? Got destroyed by Oregon, lost to Penn State, no shame in those losses. But what was their best win? Was it a really bad Michigan team that didn't have a quarterback, that was so bad a quarterback they just paid $12 million to a high school player, Bryce Underwood, to get him to campus? That's probably their best win of the regular season. They do beat South Carolina in the bowl game. But take out the South Carolina win, there just isn't a lot on that resume. The other 2 things that stand out is, 1, like I said, I think we always default to the team with the quarterback and coach that we know. Illinois kind of lost a lot. Best running back, gone. Best wide receiver, gone. Basically the entire defensive line, or at least the guys that were productive, gone. And so they lose more than I think a lot of people realize. I'm not sold on the resume they put together. The other thing, too, I was thinking about with Illinois, what did they do great last year? I went back and looked this up because I was like, am I crazy? Am I missing something? You know that Illinois was not top 30 nationally last year in scoring offense, total offense, total defense, scoring defense. Okay. To me, what that means, they weren't great at anything. They were pretty good. I don't even know what they hang their hat on. So I could go on and on. I do think the one thing that is sort of advantageous to Illinois, they do have, by Big Ten standards, a pretty manageable schedule. This is a team that does not play Oregon, does not play Penn State throughout this season. They do have to play Ohio State. I think, to me, kind of the game that's going to define them, you got to win at Indiana. If you're a legitimate top 15 team, you have to win at Indiana. They also have a trip to Washington later in the year. So listen, the schedule is manageable, but I don't love this team. I think they're a little bit overrated. I have Illinois as overrated. Let's keep it going. A couple other overrated, underrated teams. Overrated, in my opinion, South Carolina Gamecocks, one spot behind Illinois in the polls at number 13. So listen, the South Carolina story was incredible. And by the way, South Carolina fans, if you're looking for a saving grace, I wasn't really that excited about them at this time last year, so they proved me wrong. But they get those 9 wins. And to their credit, like, they were great the back half of the season. 6 games in a row to end the regular season. Victories at Oklahoma, victory over Missouri, victory over Texas A&M on that great Saturday night. Easily could have, maybe should have beat Alabama. I guess my concerns with South Carolina are a few things. One, defense basically lost everybody except Dylan Stewart. Now, Dylan Stewart's a good guy to have on that team. Don't get me wrong, potential first-team All-American, but they lost like 6 guys off of that defense that were all in the NFL draft. So all their best players off of defense, and South Carolina just does not strike me as the kind of team that can just replace body over body over body the way that an Illinois can, or the way that, an Illinois can, the way that a Georgia can, the way that Alabama can, whatever. The other thing with South Carolina, they do have a pretty tough schedule. Again, I know with the SEC, everybody to some degree has a tough schedule, but here are South Carolina's games, okay? Among their notable games, at Texas A&M, at Ole Miss, at LSU. Those are 3 teams that are all in the top 20 of this poll, okay? At LSU, at Texas A&M, at Ole Miss. Those are all very good teams. And then, oh, by the way, here's the home schedule. Alabama at home. We also have, on top of that, we also have Clemson at home to end the regular season. You have an Oklahoma team at home to end the regular season that's improved as well. Tripping over my own words here. I don't know why I'm tripping over my own words. The point I'm trying to make, those are 6 brutal games, okay? And listen, again, everybody in the SEC has tough schedules. I get it. But again, Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma at home, at LSU, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M, that's brutal. And I just don't know if they're going to have the guys and the bodies to withstand that schedule. So hopefully they prove me wrong. Be a great story if they could be in that playoff conversation again in late October, early November, mid-November. I just don't know that I see it. Let's keep it going with the overrated, underrated. You know who I actually think is a little bit underrated? The Tennessee Volunteers. Okay, so Tennessee comes in at number 18 in this coaches poll. And let me say this, like, it just feels like, to me, and I think to a degree I get it, just feels like everyone's kind of just put aside Tennessee after Nico Iamaleava left in the offseason. Here's a little secret that every Tennessee fan knows. Nico was not really the reason that Tennessee won 10 games last year and made the college football playoff. It was Dylan Sampson in the run game. It was the defense. Well, the good news is the defense returns quite a bit off that roster from a year ago. So that's important. They return a ton off that defense. The run game, let's also remember this, top 4 in the SEC all 4 years that Josh Heupel has been there. We actually talked about this a few weeks ago at Media Days because Heupel was asked about Nico. He said, listen, we love Nico, whatever. He said all the right things, but he also said we have been a team that has been able to run the ball since day one, and I'm just not that worried about our ability to do it going forward. So you look at Tennessee, their ability to run the ball. Joey Aguilar, I think, is going to be about as good as Nico, even if he's a half a step back. Again, I don't know that Nico was, in the grand scheme of the most important pieces on last year's playoff team, I don't know that Nico was at the top of that list. As a matter of fact, I'm certain he was not at the top of the list. Beyond just that, a couple other things on Tennessee. One, I think this is important, this schedule. Now, I know what a Tennessee fan will say. There is no schedule in America that includes Georgia at home, Alabama on the road, Florida on the road. That is easy. I get that, Tennessee fans. I understand what you're saying. I'll also say, compared to a lot of other SEC teams, pretty manageable. I was thinking about this. There are probably 4 teams in the SEC that I think would be considered the bottom, quote unquote, tier of the league. Cover your ears. Vandy fans, Kentucky fans, Arkansas fans, Mississippi State fans. I would say those 4 teams are the teams that everyone perceives to be the bottom of the league. Is that fair? Is it not? I don't know. Tennessee, the only team in the SEC that has all 4 of those teams. That's literally half of the league schedule against the bottom of the league. You get Oklahoma at home. Oklahoma's good. We're going to talk about them in a second. But you get Oklahoma at home. Florida, listen, we don't wish ill will or injuries upon anybody. DJ Lagway is out of that walking boot, but I think it's fair to question how healthy he can stay over the course of the year. I think Tennessee is going to be better than people expect. I think they're going to be in the playoff race throughout the season. Let's keep it going with a couple other teams that are actually not in the poll, so I guess by definition I would say are underrated. First one's the Oklahoma Sooners. And listen, Oklahoma, there's been a lot of ink on Oklahoma football over the course of this offseason, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them here. We all know the deal. 6-7 a year ago. That's not the standard. They go out. Ben Arbuckle's the new offensive coordinator, comes from Washington State. He brings John Mateer, his starting quarterback, with him. Bottom line, what you need to know, Mateer, really good. As a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of people talk about him as a dark horse Heisman candidate. I think it was Chris Doring, I want to say, on SEC Network actually picked John Mateer to win the Heisman Trophy. The other thing with Oklahoma, that offense has to be just a little bit better than it was. It doesn't have to be great. I don't think people realize this. Oklahoma had a top 20 defense a year ago. The issue was the offense couldn't stay on the field. It couldn't stop turning the ball over. So if you're just a little bit better on offense, I think you're significantly better as a team. I think Oklahoma should be rated. I think they should be ranked in the top 25, to be honest. I think it is a grave mistake not having Oklahoma there. Another team that I believe is not only underrated, but is unranked and needs to be, the Louisville Cardinals. Now, part of this is just a flat-out bet on Jeff Brom. These are Jeff Brom's last 3 years, okay? 2 years at Louisville, back-to-back 9-win seasons. Not sure if you heard, that's pretty good. 2 different quarterbacks. I think that's noteworthy as well. By the way, let's call it what it is. Tyler Shuck went from injury-riddled dude who couldn't stay on the field to a second-round pick who is going to start in the NFL draft. There's no one to give credit to on that other than Jeff Brom, and obviously to a degree Tyler Shuck for working hard. But Tyler Shuck was just left, I hate to be rude, but left on the scrap heap until Jeff Brom got a hold of him. Well, now you have Miller Moss, who I think could be better than Tyler Shuck. I'm not a Tyler Shuck guy. I wouldn't have drafted him, period, let alone in the second round. But I think Miller Moss is going to be better. I trust Jeff Brom. I trust Jeff Brom with a new quarterback. By the way, what did he do before he got to Louisville? Oh, I don't know. Had Purdue playing for a Big Ten championship. Now, I understand this was, of course, the division era, the Big Ten East, the Big Ten West. It wasn't just the 2 best teams. He is an elite A++ coach. So to me, that is a team that should be ranked. That is a team that I would have in the top 25. And again, the overrated and underrated teams, in my opinion, Alabama at number 8 is underrated. We have Illinois at number 12, overrated. South Carolina at 13, overrated. Tennessee at 18, underrated. Oklahoma and Louisville, unranked. And they should be. So by definition, that means they are underrated. All right. Good talk football, by the way. Good. Drop your questions. Drop your minute. I want to stick with one more football topic before we get any. Swaggy Dabo is back, baby, and he's got a lot to say about this year's team. Fascinating quote from Dabo. We'll come back, discuss it. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Auburn fans, we already know the freeze warning has hit the plains. Make sure to get your freeze warning t-shirts. Also, Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions @gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So tell you what, do want to keep the college football conversation going. Chat is a little bit quiet today. Feel free to drop your questions, your thoughts, your comments below. But what I want to do is take half a second to address and talk about something very interesting that I saw come across my feed over the last day or so. And it was a quote from Dabo Swinney. And so if you listen to last week, we did kind of the biggest storylines heading into fall camp, all that, okay? And as part of that, we discussed the fact that, I think Clemson is one of the more fascinating teams in all of college football. A team that I think all of us left for dead, that all of a sudden looks like, listen, top 7, top 8 in the coaches poll. I think a team that is the overwhelming favorite to win the ACC and potentially compete for a college football playoff berth, okay? And so I want to talk about what Dabo said. Before we do, I think we have to acknowledge a lot of us, and Clemson fans, if you're finding this show for the first time or if you saw me rip on Dabo over the last 2 or 3 years, let's go ahead and give Dabo a little bit of credit. And to the media who criticized him and questioned him, let's go ahead and sit back and say, we were right, we were wrong, Dabo was right. And what I mean by that is, listen, we all know the narrative, but as the college football world has changed over the last couple of years, there have been so many people in the media that have criticized Dabo Swinney's approach. Dabo has essentially said we are very limited in the transfer portal. I think this number is, I think they've taken 6 total players over the last 3 cycles. A couple of them were backup quarterbacks. And he basically said, listen, we're going to recruit guys that want to be here. We're going to develop them when they're here. We're not going to recruit over them. And we're going to focus on the guys in the building. We're not always going to be trying to find guys in the portal. We're not always going to have our players looking over their shoulder, wondering if we're going to bring in someone to replace them if they don't play well in a given game or a given week or even a given season. So I bring it up because there was an article on ESPN.com on Monday. It was basically like a state of Clemson and the Clemson way of doing things. It was written by Chris Lowe. First of all, Chris Lowe is awesome. Chris Lowe is great at what he does. And Chris Lowe basically laid all this out. He talked a lot about the few transfers that they've had, how they've been able to retain this culture. I thought it was interesting. Even Cade Klubnik acknowledged. Cade Klubnik, of course, their starting quarterback, 3rd year, many people believe can win the Heisman Trophy this year. Cade Klubnik acknowledged, yeah, there were fans that wanted me out and wanted Clemson to go into the portal, and Coach Sweeney stuck by me, and now I feel like I'm about to play the best football that I can. So this article was really good. But what I did find interesting was a quote at the bottom from Dabo Sweeney himself as the article's wrapping up. He said something very interesting that to me speaks to how he feels about this team coming into the 2024-2025 season. He said, quote, I've had one undefeated team. In 2018, we were the first 15-0 team in the history of college football ever. And I think we're going to be the first 16-0 team. It's a race to do that. So in other words, Dabo Swinney thinks that his team is about to be the first. They were the first team that went undefeated in the 4-team playoff era. that included a college, not a conference championship game. First team to go 15-0. And he believes this year Clemson is going undefeated in the regular season, winning the ACC championship and winning the national championship. They are going to be the first team to go undefeated in the 16 game 12-team college football playoff era. Let me just say, I absolutely love this. I absolutely love the confidence from Dabo, and I love that he is unafraid to put expectations on the table. First of all, let me say this. I know what a lot of people are going to say. It feels like Dabo, for some reason, has kind of become a lightning rod in college football. I don't know if it's just because, Nick Saban's retired and Jimbo Fisher got fired and a lot of big names have left the sport over the last couple of years. I've always found him refreshing. I've always found his honesty refreshing. And the one thing I'm never going to do, when a coach or a person in sports says something that is intended to incite conversation, I'm never going to criticize him, right? Because there are way too many coaches that this time of year just want to give coach speak. We're trying to get better every day. We're trying to one foot in front of the other. We're only focused on week one. And Dabo just kind of laid the cards on the table. He's like, no. We think we can win a championship. We think we can go undefeated. That is the goal. That is the expectation. And we are fired up to do it. The other thing I'll say is this. I think it can absolutely happen. Now, we talked about it on last Friday's show. And I'll be transparent. I think, in my opinion, Clemson is still, even as a top 10 team, being overlooked heading into the season. They return a ton off of last year's team. They return a third-year starter in Cade Klubnik. They return 3 elite wide receivers, Bryant Wesco, Antonio Williams, and TJ Moore, all coming back from a season ago. The run game, a little bit of work to do there. Running Phil Maffa's gone to the pros. O-line returns pieces. The defense did lose some. They got some dudes on that defense, though, headlined by Peter Woods. By the way, I still see my Alabama people tweeting about Peter Woods. He's from Alabama. Crimson Tide fans wanted him. He got away to Clemson. So, one, I think Dabo has the talent. The other thing I'll say is the schedule for ACC standards is not super easy, but they're going to be favored in every game they play. Okay, so I was looking at the schedule. First of all, they open that LSU game in week 1 is going to be unbelievable. Okay, great atmosphere. What's the real Death Valley, the real Tigers, all this, all that. Remember, as great as Garrett Nussmeier is, Clemson is favored to win that game, okay? Then you look at the rest of the schedule. We have point spreads out for basically every single game at this point. They're favored, and in some cases by significant margins. Favored to win at Georgia Tech. I think a lot of people think Georgia Tech is a sleeper. Took Georgia to the wire last year. What was it? 8-9 overtime, something like that. The final weekend of the regular season. They bring back a lot. Clemson's like a 2-touchdown favorite on the road. Bill Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels. Dabo and Clemson are a significant favorite. Late in the year, SMU, Dabo and Clemson, significant favorite. This is the one that I would keep an eye on. Louisville on the road on a Friday night. We know weird stuff happens in college football on Fridays. That's the one I'd keep an eye on. Then they close with South Carolina. And I'll be honest, the game is at South Carolina. I saw a spread. They're already a 5.5-point favorite at South Carolina to close the regular season. That is stunning to me because, again, people like South Carolina. They're a preseason top 15 team in the coaches poll. And so I just bring it up because this is a team that is going to be favored in every game they play, should be favored in every game they play. And I just feel like, man, oh man, like this thing is in play, and I love Dabo for putting it out there. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying it will happen. Again, schedule by ACC standards is not easy. That game at Louisville, it just feels really weird to me. But it is in play. It is possible. It's obviously all pending injuries. We don't wish injuries upon anybody. And lastly, let me say this. I love that he put it out there. And more importantly, I've been covering college sports long enough to know when a coach is feeling good about his team. Okay. Because listen, I'll go back to when I was a student at UConn. I remember one year, Jim Calhoun on opening night just basically said, I got a team that's good enough to win the national championship. Now we got to go out and do it. And it was like eye-opening to me of like, oh, he just really laid the gauntlet down to his team in front of everybody. I think we're good enough to do this. Let's go out and do it. And so the fact that Dabo is openly saying it, What that means to me is that Dabo absolutely, positively believes that he has a team that is good enough to win the national championship. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but can it happen? Might it happen? Will it happen? It feels like it's absolutely in play. And I think that if Dabo Swinney didn't believe that he had a team that was good enough to do it, he would not have said it. So very cool quote from Dabo Swinney. The quote again, we've had one undefeated team, 2018, Trevor Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, who's certainly in the news. We were the first 15-0 team in college football history ever. And I think we're going to be the first 16-0 team. It's a race to do that. Dabo Swinney laying down the gauntlet. And I think, frankly, he's got a Clemson team that is capable of meeting those expectations. All right, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, we got to get to some hoops. NCAA Tournament is set to not expand. Hallelujah. We'll discuss that. We will also discuss Tyran Stokes, some interesting quotes over the weekend. Quick break, final segment. Be right back. What's up, everybody? It's AT, and I've told you before, when I'm on the road, when I'm podcasting, sometimes you end up looking like a slob. Look at me, mismatched socks. I'm wearing shorts. What am I doing? The folks at Firebox said, Torres, let's get you some fresh gear to look better when you're on camera. Well, what do you think? This is all part of the spring collection for Firebox. These jeans, perfect when I want to go to games, casual, serious, business casual, you name it. Got the quarter zip. And oh, by the way, we got this perfect zip. This is the perfect spring, summer zip that you can wear when you're out with friends. Maybe it gets a little chilly. Maybe it's a little chilly in the morning. Perfect for all occasions. So this is what I need you to do. If you like what you see, and you should, what I need you to do is visit Firebox.com. That's Firebox.com, F-I-O-B-O-C. By the way, Firebox has a special promo code for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Use promo code Torres and get 20% off your purchase. Thank you again to Firebox. By the way, make sure that you're following them on social media at Firebox, F-I-O-B-O-C. Thank you, Firebox. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Do want to go ahead and wrap with some hoops in a second. We also want to get to some of your questions. Before we do, though, you already know what time it is. It is time to thank our friends. It is time to thank our partners. It is time to thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs' story. Family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan, was sitting on the couch one day, pigging out on whatever snack he was eating. He looked at himself in the mirror. He said, I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something I'm going to love, something my kids are going to love. He said, I need to come up with something. He came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the alternative to the crap in your grocery aisle. Delicious, but also healthy. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But as I just said, they taste freaking delicious, okay? So this is what I need you to do. For more information or to try them out for yourself. At this point, I've been telling you about them for a long time. You need to go to CauleyPuffs.com. That's CauleyPuffs.com. CauleyPuffs.com. Try them out there. Order them there. How about this? You get 15% off your purchase when you use promo code Torres. That's CauleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres, Torres. Now, I know they are also available on Amazon.com. You cannot get the discount there, so I encourage you, go to CauleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres for 15% off your purchase. All right, I want to get to some hoop stuff. Before we do that, we get a good question about the football stuff from David French. So let's go ahead and pop that up real quick, Matt. David French says, you say Illinois is overrated. Here's my question. What makes Drew Aller, who of course is at Penn State, a better quarterback than Luke Altmire? Compare their stats from last year. Penn State also played 3 more games. It's a great question. Here's my answer. I'm not really sold that Drew Aller is a better quarterback significantly than Luke Altmire. He's certainly got more of the measurables. He's huge, huge arm. He hasn't shown it in big games. And I'll plug a little bit the college football betting YouTube channel where we just surpassed 1,000 subscribers. We've done our team-by-team previews. Matt, maybe you can drop a link to that in the chat right now. We just previewed Penn State last night, and I like Penn State. I'm still not sold on them because James Franklin has no history of winning the really big games that matter. I think he's 1-9, 1-10 against Ohio State. I think he's like 1-14 against top 10 teams. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. The other thing, Drew Aller was not good in Penn State's 3 losses last year. And I'll take it a step further. He was abjectly terrible in 2 of them, Ohio State and Notre Dame, in the college football playoff. Now, against Oregon, he threw for 3 touchdowns and ran for 1. He also completed about 50% of his passes. So, David, it's a great question. I'm just not a Drew Aller guy. I think the counter to it is that Drew Aller does have much better talent around him. 2,000-yard running backs in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. They really spent their NIL money wisely on wide receivers in the portal. Kyron Hudson from USC, Trebor Pena from Syracuse. They also 4 starters returning on the O-line, and the defense is going to be sick and maybe even better than last year with Jim Knowles as the defensive coordinator. So I just bring it up because I actually don't disagree with your sentiment at all. I'm not sold that Drew Aller is a better quarterback than Luke Altmire. I do think he has much better help around him. And to take it a step further, Penn State doesn't really lose the weird games that they're not supposed to. So I hope that answers your question. But the Drew Aller fan club, Torres is not the president. Okay, you have to talk me into it. I'll do my college football playoff, stuff over the course of the next couple weeks. But it's hard not to pick Clemson to make the playoff. But like when we're talking about true national championship contenders, do we really think they're beating Ohio State and Alabama back-to-back, Alabama and Texas back-to-back, Texas and Notre Dame back-to-back? They just have no track record of being able to do that in a postseason, and that's what they would obviously need to do to win the college football playoff. All right, let's go ahead and get to a couple other basketball items. Okay, so the first one, I just want to spend about 2 minutes on this one. We'll get to Tyran Stokes, I promise, okay? First one, within the last probably hour to hour and a half, we got news on a topic that we discussed. We talked about this probably about a month ago. I think it was late June, maybe early July. There was like real talk the 2026 NCAA tournament would expand to 72 or 76 teams. And we talked about it, and we don't need to relitigate and rediscuss everything that I said on that show. But I said, this is not a good idea. We don't need it. There are not teams that are good enough to compete at the highest level of basketball that we're leaving out of the NCAA tournament. Do not expand the NCAA tournament. If you missed that, it was right around, I feel like, July 4th. You can go back and check it out. I only bring it up because, again, about an hour ago, we got news that the NCAA has officially announced the NCAA will not expand the tournament for the 2026 season. Now, listen, I'll say this, is that I think on social media, everybody threw their hands up in celebration, and this is the greatest thing ever, and credit the NCAA. They finally get something right. Don't be fooled by what this means. You can see it on the screen, and I'm glad Matt added the caveat at the end. The tournament is not expanding for 2026. They are continuing conversations for years beyond this coming NCAA tournament. Listen, this is what I can tell you. The powers that be want to add teams because there's more money. The power conferences want it because they're the ones that are going to benefit from it. We're going to get more SEC teams, more Big 10 teams, more Big 12 teams. All today's news said to me about the NCAA tournament is that it's off for a year, that they heard your loud complaints, and they're sitting there saying, no, we gave you the victory. We gave it 2026. We promise. We care about you guys as fans. They don't care about us as fans. And the next opportunity that they get to bring this back to the table, probably next summer, they're going to do it. And you know what else they're going to say when they bring it back to the table next summer? Well, you guys complained last year, and we gave you 2026 with a 68-team tournament. And this is a great thing, and we heard you, and we listened loud and clear. But I think it's time to revisit it based on some abstract BS narrative that they're going to create. They're going to make up some new stat that says that if they expand this is going to happen. No. We don't need more than 68 teams. So all I would say, this is great for the moment, but stay on your toes. Keep those little eyes peeled, because the NCAA is going to try to convince you in a year from now that this is a good thing, just like they did this past week, this past month, this past 2-3 month period. Don't buy it. Don't let up. Tweet about it. Talk about it. Whatever. Talk to your congressman. Whatever you got to do. Let the world know that you don't want this, because I'm just here to tell you they're not slowing down just because they pushed it off for a year. They're going to bring it right back to the table a year from now. We cannot let them do this. All right. Let's go ahead and switch gears. Let's get to the topic and the conversation that everybody in the chat is humming about right now. That is the recruitment of 5-star wing Tyran Stokes. And if you listen to the Aaron Torres pod, and obviously you do, because you're hearing me say this right now, whether you're listening live, listening on replay, podcast, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, whatever, you know we've talked a lot about Tyran Stokes, okay? And it's for good reason. Number 1 high school player in America, class of 2026. So number 1 player going into his senior year. And, first of all, just a really good player. 6'7", power player. I think what really impresses me about him is his ability to kind of be a chameleon, can be the star of the show like he is in high school, can be the star of the show like he is with the Oakland Soldiers, AAU circuit, but then also Team USA, when they needed him to take a back seat, when they needed him to be a role player, when they needed him to be instant offense off the bench, he backed, I don't want to say backed off because that sounds negative, but he kind of acquiesced to the Mikel Brown Jr.'s, Koa Pete's, AJ DeBonsas, etc. Well, I bring it up because we have talked a lot about him. We've certainly talked about his recruitment. I think like probably maybe 2 or 3 times in the last month, 6 weeks. I don't even know. If you listen to this show, you know we've talked about it a lot, okay? And we even talked about it, I should mention, last week, because I did my annual projecting where every 5-star is going to commit to play college basketball. And so we talked about every player, and I will readily admit, I said, look, everything's trending towards Kentucky. This is a Kentucky native, but he's also a Louisville native. And so early in his recruitment, it felt like a Louisville lean, maybe even a Louisville hard lean, where he was like an overwhelming favorite. And then the buzz coming out of Peach Jam was that Kentucky had taken a lead. So I bring it up because I think a lot of you know where I'm going, but Tyran Stokes gave just a hint of an update over the course of the weekend, which I do think that we should probably discuss. That hint was that he actually had I don't know if it was an NIL setup. He was back in Louisville, though, and he was in Louisville doing some kind of event. And in it, he gave a media availability press conference where he basically was asked about where he was leaning in college in his recruitment. Okay. So he gave 2 different quotes that were interesting. Let's get to the first one, producer Matt, probably not as important. Asked what he was looking for in a college. He said, definitely development is one of the things. A good foundation, someone who has fans and puts their all into the school. Not just someone who says, oh, we have a good football team or a good basketball team. I want to go somewhere where I can have a good time actually experiencing college, go to a nice football game, have a nice baseball team to go to, just experience school. So first of all, I love this quote because I think this is the sad reality of being a one and done is, you only get 9 months on campus, and he clearly wants to experience everything. He wants to fit 4 years of fun into his college experience. You go back to last year. I remember there being a story, Cooper Flagg, basically, what was it? It was maybe Labor Day weekend. All the players went home except for Cooper Flagg because he's just like, I just want to be on campus because I know I'm not going to be here for very long. So I love that Tyran Stokes has the awareness. Now, it was funny because all of a sudden, you instantly, when this quote popped up on social media, I instantly saw Louisville fans, Kentucky fans, other fan bases arguing about whose football team was the best, whose football team was the worst, whose baseball team was the best, all that. I think we can all agree if he wants baseball, if his school list is probably Kentucky, Louisville, I would add Kansas and Arkansas. I'd certainly say Arkansas is the best baseball experience if you're looking for that. Football, I think it's a little bit more questionable. Now, I'll be transparent. I've been to games at Kroger Field where it's sold out, loud, and crazy. I've also seen what it's like, the last end of last season when they were losing to Auburn and Vandy and teams like that. So I don't know how the football experience is there. I think Arkansas, I've been to Razorback Stadium. I've never been to a game there, though. I could see where that place would get crazy. I could see where that place wouldn't get crazy. So there's that. I think it'll be interesting, by the way. He has not taken a visit to Arkansas yet. They obviously have a couple big home games, including September 29th when they host Notre Dame. So that was the first quote. But this was the quote that caught everybody's attention, and it's because of the context behind it. Asked also what he was looking for in a college experience, Tyran Stokes followed up by adding, quote, I also want a school that's not going to duck the smoke. That's it. I don't like ducking the smoke, so I want everybody on the schedule. If I could get North Carolina, Duke, anybody on the schedule, that's all I want. Now, that just feels like a quote, a great quote. Doesn't want to duck the smoke. I think, one, probably eliminate North Carolina and Duke from his list. But two, in truly only a story that could really surface in the internet message board era, there were a couple interesting follow-up quotes about this. So here's the thing. Again, Tyran Stokes says, I do not want to duck the smoke. I am not ducking the smoke. Well, I bring it up because even yesterday on our Where Will All the 5 Stars Commit video, I saw a comment where somebody said, bro, Tyran Stokes is quoting Pat Kelsey. He's going to Louisville. And I was like, whoa, what do you mean he's quoting Pat Kelsey? I didn't put two and two together until I started looking into it today. Here is what Pat Kelsey had to say a few months ago when asked about Louisville's 2026 schedule. So remember, Louisville last year was an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament, and part of it was that really they didn't have the toughest schedule. The ACC was down, whatever. Louisville beefs up their schedule by adding Memphis, by adding Baylor, Arkansas in the Big 12, Big 10, ACC, SEC challenge. They're playing Arkansas. Arkansas is not in the Big 10 or the Big 12. They're playing, again, Arkansas, Baylor, whatever, plus, of course, Kentucky. Pat Kelsey, when asked about why he put together such a daunting schedule, said, quote, what I do want to do is make sure that when we get to the NCAA tournament and the selection committee is looking at us, they know one thing. Louisville did not duck the smoke. They didn't duck the smoke. So that was our approach this year. Tyran Stokes, when asked what he was looking for in a college, almost quite literally verbatim quotes something that Pat Kelsey said a few weeks ago. Now, why is it also interesting? Because Louisville fans are taking a victory lap over that quote. Then I saw this was the time of the NCAA tournament. This was around the time of the NCAA tournament. Did we lose him? Oh my goodness, you have got to be kidding me with this technology. All right, this was around the time of the NCAA tournament. Mark Pope was talking about Kentucky, and he said, quote, you don't come to Kentucky if you're trying to run from the smoke. So, very interesting. Mark Pope, almost verbatim, saying the same thing that Pat Kelsey almost said verbatim, which at the same time is something that Tyran Stokes also said on Sunday when asked about his college decision. And so this has become almost a pseudo, let's just call it what it is, a you-know-what measuring contest for these two fan bases. Who is ducking the smoke less? Is it Pat Kelsey? Or what does it mean? Be perfectly transparent. I don't know that it really means anything, okay? I hate to burst everybody's bubble. Saying I don't want to duck the smoke context, and is Tyran Stokes, I'm not saying. Seems like a bright kid, very self-aware, I think, in this NIL world. I live in SoCal where he's playing his high school ball. Everybody who's around him loves him. Was he that aware to specifically sit on that quote and say, well, Pat Kelsey said this or Mark Pope said this, I'm going to quote him verbatim? So to me, probably doesn't mean all that much, but I'll also say this, maybe it does. I will say in all seriousness, this is what I will say. I know what I said last week, okay? I said if I was picking today, I would pick Kentucky as the favorite with Tyran Stokes. I do think this is ultimately going to come down to a Louisville and Kentucky battle, though. Okay, so that is where I would frame this, and that is where I would say, did the quote actually mean anything? Probably not. But at the same time, like I do think it is interesting, and I do think it will be between these two schools. Now, I've heard all sorts. Nike, Tyran that last week. I circuit influence is a little bit overrated. I also think, in some ways, what Tyran Stokes' mom said was a little bit overrated as well, because she was asked about the recruitment. She said, we're from Louisville. Louisville fans don't watch Kentucky games. So I think all of that is a little bit overrated. But what I do think is it's going to come down to these two schools. Listen, he visited Kansas to the degree that shoe affiliation matters. Kansas is an Adidas school. That's not a great sign. I also, and I said this a few days ago, but like Bill Self, listen, we're all rooting for a speedy recovery. I'm not wishing ill will upon him as he went in for a second heart procedure in 3 years. I don't know how much longer he can do this. I don't know how much longer he will do this. And I think as long as he's coaching, there are going to be those questions around him. So I don't really know that Kansas is in the mix. Arkansas, I get the Calipari ties. Calipari, the one-and-done king. But even Calipari, I think Calipari would take Tyran Stokes if he had the chance. But the counter to that is Calipari's kind of rebranded himself as he's not really the one-and-done guy anymore. He'll still show up courtside to support Jamal Murray or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Devin Booker. But he's kind of been public about the days of recruiting 4, 5, 6 freshmen are over, and you have to be really selective in this era of college basketball that we're in. And so to me, I ultimately think it is going to be a Louisville versus Kentucky recruitment. I know what I said last week because I already know what the comments are going to say. Torres, you're just flip-flopping. You're just playing both sides. Listen, if I had to pick today, I'd probably lean Kentucky. Tyran Stokes' camp has said it's going to come sometime after the season starts. I don't know that we're on the 1-yard line, but it certainly was an interesting quote, to say the least, from Tyran Stokes, who says, I am not ducking the smoke. And, of course, those were quotes that Pat Kelsey and Mark Pope said. All right, one more topic that I want to get to. This is definitely just a lighter topic, a funner topic, an interesting topic. Let me say this, okay? So, Friday night, listen, first of all, it's one of the few nights a week that there's not a ton of sports on. I try to lay low. My wife actually has this work thing. She's got this training every Friday night, so she's in the next room over doing her training. So Friday nights in the Torres household get a little lonely for Torres, okay? So this past Friday, I'm just kind of sitting around and made dinner, sitting in front of the TV looking for something to watch. By the way, we need to get football back so bad. And I bring it up because I see on my timeline that BYU basketball has put out this little social media clip, basically oh crap, summer's here, summer's kind of over, and we're fired up about our team. Then I saw that they put out a full 8-9 minute video on YouTube of their summer workouts. And so it was Friday night, didn't really have much to do. So I said, screw it, I'm going to go ahead and watch this, okay? And I bring it up because it was 8 of the most enjoyable sports-related moments of my summer. They put out a quick clip on social media. Matt, do we have that video? I'll say this, by the way, the YouTube overlords, I have been given permission to use this. So, producer Matt, just go ahead and play the quick, it's about a 5 to 10 second clip of BYU basketball with the caveat that there's an 8-minute video that follows. So that was just a short clip. BYU has now posted the full 8-9 minute video on YouTube. Let me say this. By the way, at last count, when I looked, it was at about 45,000 views. Let me give BYU credit. We're going to talk about what we saw in that BYU video. By the way, BYU fans watching, they might be getting a commitment this Monday evening, so we might discuss that on the next show. But credit to BYU, because I believe that this is something that every school in America should be doing in the offseason. And to take it a step further, I think every school in America needs to be doing, not just should be doing. So let's credit BYU. I was thinking about this, okay? First of all, before we get to like what we actually watched, in this NIL portal era, I almost think that schools have an obligation to put out content like this. Again, it was only an 8-9 minute video, but go ahead and look at the comments. Fans are so fired up. And I think, frankly, okay, 3 things. We all have the technology to do it. I could go to BYU press thing and put together an 8-minute clip for their YouTube. Now, I'm not going to. I haven't. I won't. I don't think I'm allowed to. But it's so easy to do. And what I was thinking about is I think you almost have to do that in this era, okay? One, fans deserve it. Fans are being asked now more than ever, hey, donate, give, buy team gear, whatever, this NIL world. Like, fans are being asked now for more than they've ever been asked. And so you have to reward them in some way, right? It's like the old Nick Saban quote. You can't just give. You can't just take and not give. But the other thing is, in this portal world, a lot of the times you don't know the players. You've seen a 3-minute highlight. You've seen a commitment video. But you don't know what it's like to actually watch them. I'll give you a quick side story. I was talking to somebody about UConn today. And we were talking about just UConn. Listen, I love college basketball, but UConn just finished 8 weeks, one media availability. It was at the end of the 8 weeks of practice, and it was Dan Hurley. And what I said was, for the new players on campus, Braylon Mullins, true freshman, Silas Demery, high-profile transfer, UConn fans aren't going to get to know that kid until the first exhibition game in October. So why would you not do these 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-minute practice video to, one, get fans fired up, but two, you kind of owe it to them in this portal NIL era, and it's a great way to introduce your fan base to their new players. Crazy part is it doesn't take much. This was 8 minutes. This wasn't an hour-long documentary. It was an 8-minute video that got everybody fired up. It took people a little bit behind the scenes and kind of showed everybody who these guys are, how they get along, what their strengths are, who's goofy, who's funny, who's serious, who's this, who's that. Why isn't every team in America doing it? And I'll take it a step further to something I said a few weeks ago. I give credit to, who to me was the coach that just got it this offseason? Actually, former BYU coach Mark Pope, because Kentucky had 8 weeks of summer workouts. Every single week, they made somebody available to the media. Week 1, it was Mark Pope. Last week, it was Mark Pope. In between, for 6 straight weeks, players were available to the media. And so what better way for Kentucky fans to get to know their players than Jalen Lowe, than Jaden Quayans, than Denzel Aberdeen, all these new guys going to the podium and answering questions. I think it's good for the players as well. It's an NIL portal world. You're asking fans to pay these guys. You're asking fans to give money. What better way to introduce fans to them than by putting them in front of fans? So I'm rambling, whatever. It's a Monday. I'm fired up. I would also say, as far as the BYU stuff is concerned, I'm sorry. It's going to be a really good team. And it's funny because whenever I talk about, Torres, you're just hyping up the band, so this, that, the other thing. BYU is so much more than AJ DeBonsa. And I think AJ DeBonsa is really good. There's a little bit of a brushback. AJ DeBonsa, even though he won MVP, I wouldn't say necessarily had the best World Cup. He struggled shooting the ball. I think he shot like 2 of 20-something from 3. But it's not just him. It's Richie Saunders. It's Rob Wright. By the way, I was thinking about this. I don't know if fantasy college basketball even exists. I think Rob Wright might lead the nation in assists this year. And part of it is just based on that video that I saw. They have so much size, so much athleticism, and that's what I keep coming back to with BYU. I think everybody thinks, BYU is just AJ DeBonsa. No. Richie Saunders was all Big 12 first team. He might be a preseason All-American. DeBonsa is going to be a top 5 pick, probably top 2 pick, maybe the number 1 pick. Rob Wright is going to be all Big 12 caliber. Keba Keita, who wasn't in the video, a lot of people commented, oh my goodness, where is Keba Keita? is a monster. Xavier Staten is a monster. Some of the other guys. The other thing, too, they did a very good job of adding shooting kind of in that like 6, 7, 8, 9 spot. So it's kind of like, okay, DeBonsa and Richie Saunders are the stars. Rob Wright is going to be the engine that makes everything go. And then you got a bunch of guys that could just knock down threes. Kennard Davis, the Tyler Maroose kid from Idaho. Yeah, BYU is going to be good. There's this reverse narrative now of BYU is getting too much hype. You could sell your BYU stock. Give me all of your BYU stock because I think they're going to be really good. I think they're going to be as good as we all think they're going to be. I think they have 3 of probably the top 20 players in college basketball. I think it's going to be an incredible season in Provo, a season that starts in Vegas. I think I'll be at that game, so I am so fired up. All right, I'll tell you what. Great. First of all, Matt, any good questions in the chat here before we get out of here? See a lot of arguing here in the chat, which is okay. A lot of arguing. That's okay. It's a Monday. We're fighting here. It's okay. It's a Monday. It's okay. We can argue. But I will tell you what. I think we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Do me a quick favor. If you are not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcast, please make sure to subscribe. You can also rate and review the show. Go ahead, give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. Thank you to our friends at Cauley Puffs. Awesome show, fun show. We covered a lot of ground. We do it like nobody else. College football, college basketball, you name it. Thank you for your support. We're going to get out of here. Shout out to Torrin Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. I'll be back probably Wednesday, maybe Tuesday.